This video is sponsored by NordVPN.
Hello Internet, Taliesin here, and today we are talking Dark Rangers, as in the sexy red-eyed emo elf bodyguards of Sylvanas Windrunner, and S-tier 9-carat guaranteed top answer on any WoW player's new playable race/class that I would like to see added to the game, because honestly, who wouldn't want to play as one of these gals? They are hot and deadly, like TikTok mugshot guy or a badly wired electric kettle. Well, good news Internet, because today we are also talking playable Dark Rangers. How I and many others are convinced that they are coming in the next expansion, and the hard evidence that backs it up. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, okay Taliesin, I get what this video is all about. You need some clicks, and so you've put out a playable Dark Ranger video, because that's a guaranteed way to get people excited. But it's just going to be a whole bunch of vague references and hopium, GG. And honestly, I don't blame you for thinking that. Playable Dark Rangers is right up there with WoW sucks and Why I Left My Guild as guaranteed crowd pleasers in the Warcraft YouTube arena. But what if I told you there is a Dark Ranger questline that has been in the data since 8.1.5, has never been taken out, and has been updated in recent builds, including the new 9.2.5 PTR? What if I told you that the obvious story threads and groundwork that Blizz laid for playable Dark Rangers for both factions in the BFA storyline are about to be taken up again in the new patch, and that encrypted maps and models all point towards a sexy dark silhouette that can only be Dark Rangers, being played by you in Horde or Alliance in some capacity in the very near future? Well, join us as we reveal and discuss the overwhelming evidence that playable Dark Rangers are coming, okay? Go, 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 go. This all begins back in 2019 with a single quest which popped up in the data for patch 8.1.5, fittingly the same patch that playable Kultiran humans and Zandalari trolls were added to the game. The quest is called the Dark Rangers Pupil and sees players heading to True Shot Lodge, the Legion Hunter order hall, at the request of Death Hunter Morguth, an NPC who, back in Legion, sent hunters on a cute quest to help him woo Dark Ranger Velanara, a quest which eventually rewards the Dark Ranger hood. In this new quest, he reveals that Velanara has gone missing in search of a freshly raised novice Dark Ranger that she has been training, who himself has run off in search of his brother in Tirisfal Glades. There are different versions of this quest text for Horde and Alliance, and the fact that players are referred to as Champion in the text, as opposed to, say, Huntmaster, the title awarded to hunters in Legion, suggests that this quest may also have been open to all classes, despite starting in this specific order hall. Now, in that same PTR, there was a new map data mined for Scarlet Halls, which definitely seemed to be associated with this quest. Scarlet Halls is in Tirisfal Glades, where Velanara's pupil was headed. Velanara herself was actually a quest giver in every wing of the Scarlet Monastery right up until the Mists of Pandaria changes. And also, the map is called Scarlet Halls Dark Rangers, so yeah, you know, there's that too. This would certainly appear to be part of a scenario involving Velanara, her pupil, and the search for his brother. I don't know what you're thinking. You're thinking, well, yeah, Taliesin, absolutely, these things all seem connected, but apart from the fact that this quest never made it out of the data to be playable in any way, who's to say it was ever intended to be something that led to playable Dark Rangers anyway? And even if it were, then it's clearly not an idea that Blizzard are continuing with. And again, those are very fair and reasonable points. Thanks for bringing them up. Let's answer the second one first. The quest may not have made it into patch 8.1.5, but it's wrong to say that Blizzard have abandoned it, like Bane in basically any story he's involved in. Far from it, in fact, because the Dark Ranger's Pupil was also in the 8.2 data, and the 8.3 data, and the Shadowlands Alpha data, where, would you look at that, it's been updated. The Pupil that Velanara is trying to find has now been given a name, Prelus. It seems like a pretty random update, doesn't it? A random name for a random not yet in the game NPC, but the fact that it has been updated at all shows that this isn't just something that Blizzard have locked away in the Medan cupboard. Someone someone in Team 2 has taken the time to do this, and can we just take a closer look at that name, please? Preless as a word doesn't mean anything specific, but it is very similar to another word. In fact, if you Google the word preless, the first word that comes up is the dictionary definition of the word prelude, as in an action or event serving as an introduction to something more important. A pretty strong hint that this quest, called the Dark Ranger's Pupil, will lead to something big and important, and gosh, I wonder what that could be. And incidentally, also in the Shadowlands alpha data, there was this interactive wanted poster called Dark Ranger's Dark Times. But you know, I'm sure that's not important. I'm sure that's got nothing to do with anything. His name is Preless, for f***'s sake. Another thing, also in this version, the way Morguth greets the player has changed too, from champion to fellow hunter, suggesting that while the quest is still cross-faction, it is now only available to hunters. And so things remained with the Dark Ranger's Pupil throughout Shadowlands until literally this week, when the first patch 9.2.5 build hit the PTR, and would you believe it, the Dark Ranger's Pupil has been updated again, with Morguth's greeting changing again, this time referring to the player as Huntmaster, that Legion Order Hall title. A cross-faction Dark Ranger questline given to you by an NPC who in the past has given you an item that helps you look like a Dark Ranger, specifically about a new Dark Ranger recruit called Preless, which was added to the game in Legion and continually updated right up until the latest build, with its own scenario map and interactive quest items. That is some pretty compelling evidence all by itself, but what if I told you it's not the only interesting Dark Ranger linked update in the new PTR? Because it's not. But before that, I think it's quite important to take a moment to look at the narrative seeds that Blizz have been sowing for playable Dark Rangers that look like they are ready to be reaped. Dark Rangers are traditionally ex-members of the Fast Riders of Kel'Thalas, a regiment of elite High Elf Rangers under the command of the Ranger General Sylvanas Windrunner, and who, along with their leader, were killed in the Scourge invasions of the Third War. Raised into undeath by Sylvanas, they served as the Banshee's personal bodyguard and Black Ops unit, and they have captured the imagination of players since day one, for a number of reasons. Firstly, obviously, they are badass AF. They're Rangers, which means they deal in bows and stealth, and have a habit of leaping out of the shadows to cause havoc when you least expect them. They are undead High Elves, which in itself is a rarity. All Forsaken characters that we, the pleb scumbag WoW players, can make are humans from Lordaeron. Sylvanas having a deal with the Blood Elves not to raise any more of her old gang into the ranks. And of course, their representation in the game is overwhelmingly female, despite Fast Riders being a mix of genders. So, you know, there's that too. All in all, the reasons for not having playable Dark Rangers were pretty understandable. There is a minuscule number of them. They are of a different race to established playable undead characters, and there is no way of new Dark Rangers being created. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, but Taliesin, that quest that you were just talking about is called the Dark Ranger's Pupil and is about a new Dark Ranger recruit. And you are right, my beautiful big brain 5000 IQ viewer. It is. And that's because the Dark Ranger situation has been changing quite a lot in recent times, most notably from Battle for Azeroth and the War of Thorns, when Sylvanas' horde attacked Darkshore and eventually destroyed Teldrassil. I don't know if you remember that. And we were introduced to a blood elf called Lorash Sunbeam, both in-game and in the BFA prequel novella A Good War. In the War of Thorns, Lorash leads the initial attack on Darkshore and is killed by Malfurion, before being raised as a new Dark Ranger by Sylvanas. Something you may remember I mentioned about 10 seconds ago is not allowed according to her deal with Lorthamar. And yet here we are, and suddenly making new Dark Rangers is back on the menu, boys, and not just limited to Blood Elves either. In the aftermath of the Horde victory, Sylvanas sends players out to raise, specifically, fallen Night Elf Sentinels into the ranks, some of which managed to resist the call, and we now know end up in the Maw, gutted, sorry dudes, but many of whom do enter undead servitude and are labelled Dark Rangers. So we now have a hearty new batch of male and female Dark Rangers, made up of Blood Elves and Night Elves. I think you'll agree things are currently Tabasco levels of spicy, but buckle up fam, because we're going to go full Carolina Reaper on this shit, because in the course of the Fourth War, Sylvanas goes off the rails harder than the world's worst skateboarder, to the extent that half the Horde actively worked to undermine and overthrow their leader. The Dark Rangers, of course, remained totally loyal until Sylvanas' big...
You are all
rant and subsequent yeeting off, at which point opinions among the Ranger gang became a lot more mixed. In the aftermath of Siege of Orgrimmar 2.0, Dark Ranger Velenara, oh wait, that sounds familiar, where have we seen her name before? Oh yes, now I remember, tells the player that although some of the Dark Rangers have chosen to stay by Sylvanas' side, she and many others have not, and are starting a new chapter in the Dark Elf saga in service of the Horde. At the same time, Lilian Voss calls a meeting with new weird Lightforged undead ex-Princess of Lordaeron, Calia Menethil, and freshly raised Derek Proudmoore at the Calston estate, in which Calia agrees to try and help those new Forsaken Night Elf Sentinels raised at Darkshore. Born, as Lilian puts it, into rage and darkness. They are abandoned, forsaken, angry, confused, in need of a guiding hand and some serious therapy, and the last we saw of this Alliance-centric undead band, they were heading en masse to do that soul-searching in Deathnell, as in, you know, the Forsaken starting area, Deathnell. So to recap, the FA very explicitly advances the Dark Ranger lore so that by the end of the expansion where the concept of allied races was introduced, by the way, we now find ourselves in a situation where a whole bunch of new Dark Rangers have been made from both Blood Elves and Night Elves. Many of the High and Blood Elf Dark Rangers, including old favourites, chose to stay on and serve the Horde after Sylvanas' departure, marking an independence from the Banshee Queen for the first time since their undeath. Night Elf Dark Rangers have seemingly left the Horde entirely and are in the process of coming to terms with their new unlives, in much the same way as we saw the Lordaeron Forsaken do in the early days of WoW, under the care of the undead Princess of Lordaeron. Basically, the way is clear and the stage is set for both the Horde and Alliance to get their own playable undead elf Dark Rangers. Which is why, when this image leaked, alongside that Bastion image that turned out to be a real leak, by the way, people were very willing to believe that the time had come at last, since the whole previous expansion had done so much groundwork to enable playable Dark Rangers. Of course, that turned out to be a false hope for Shadowlands, but we have pretty strong reasons to believe that it's something which is coming in 10.0. There's the fact that since telling us about her plans to stay with the Horde, Velenara's NPC has gone missing from Orgrimmar and hasn't been seen at all in Shadowlands. Missing much like she is described as being in the Dark Ranger's Pupil. I remember I said earlier there was some other interesting data in 9.2.5? Well, let's take a look at that, shall we?
Hey everyone, you know what I love? The internet. The whole thing. I just love getting in every nook and cranny of it, you know? Which is why we're very happy to be working with NordVPN, who are sponsoring today's video. Now, I am an online native. I've been live journaling and writing Thrall Arthas /fic since day one, but some people, not gonna name names, Tally, are a bit behind on the state of the internet. The man still has a Hotmail account. But even Tally knows about the importance of VPNs now, so there's no reason why you shouldn't be taking your internet safety seriously. NordVPN keeps your connection secure. All of your internet data stays safe behind a wall of encryption thicker than my Thrall Arthas /fic folder. It also blocks malware and annoying ads, which means Tally can finally get through a single workday without clicking on a dozen generic fantasy ladies in bikini armor. Nord also has servers in 59 countries, which gives you instant secure access to streaming websites worldwide. And thanks to hundreds of P2P servers, you can share files directly with no hassle. That's right, Tally, P2P.
What the? You can't put that in an advert!
Sorry, it's funny. And of course, Nord doesn't track, collect, or share any of your data or browsing history. So, you know, do what you need to do. Look, I'm gonna be real with you, off script. You know you need a VPN, and you know why you need a VPN. You know you should have a VPN right now for your safety and enjoyment online. And the only reason you don't have one is because you think it's a bit of a hassle. And what I'm saying is that this is completely hassle-free, to the extent that even Taliesin can manage it.
Evie, I can't tell if my coffee is too hot or too cold. Can you test it for me, please?
Tally, that's an empty mug.
Oh.
What I'm saying is, if Tally can manage it, so can you. Right now, you can get a huge discount on a 2-year plan of NordVPN, plus 1 free additional month, but only through our URL. So head to nordvpn.com/Taliesin Evitel to check it out. If at any point you're not happy, Nord has a 30-day money-back guarantee, so there's no risk. That's nordvpn.com/Taliesin Evitel. Happy surfing.
As well as the update to the Dark Ranger's Pupil quest that we've already talked about, the 9.25 PTR is unexpectedly full of loads of juicy goodies, like new heritage armor and weapon quest lines for Blood Elves and Dark Iron Dwarves, new mount rewards for those races. We're going to see cross-faction play being tested on there too, but there's also something very important concerning our Dark Ranger saga. A new encrypted map of Tirisfal Glades. You know, where we are sent to look for Prelus and Velenara in the Dark Ranger's Pupil. And this map is not part of the Blood Elf heritage stuff. It appears to be connected to something completely different. I wonder what. And as well as that, there is an encrypted model for Calia Menethil, who you remember took charge of the Night Elf Dark Rangers at the Calston Estate. And as well as that, there is an area table connected to that encrypted Glades map, which among others lists the Calston Estate as a place that has apparently been updated. There is no denying it, something is going on with the Dark Rangers, and I'm at the stage where playable Dark Rangers in some form or other next expansion would be less of a surprise than if there wasn't playable Dark Rangers. There is just too much evidence at this stage to not take it incredibly seriously, which raises the question, doesn't it? What form would playable Dark Rangers even take? The first, most obviously, is a new playable class. We're due a new playable class in 10.0, having not had one since Legion, the longest gap between new classes in the game's history, and a new 2-spec hero class with the classic bow-wielding ranged ranger. I've just worked out why they're called rangers. And the more stabby melee version would fit the modern mold set by Demon Hunters previously. If you were to have a new class, you'd want it to be a ranged class and a mail-wearing class, and since they're basically hunters, Dark Rangers could be both. Now, the flaws in the idea of Dark Rangers as a standalone class is pretty obvious though, isn't it? Like I just said, they are basically just cooler hunters or cooler rogues. What mechanics and abilities would they possibly use that aren't basically just hunters or rogues? Probably not many. And if the plan is to only have Blood Elves and Night Elves become Dark Rangers, then, well, yeah, that just happens to be the exact same incredibly narrow race restriction as Demon Hunters, which is a bit sad, really, isn't it? The next option is to have them as an allied race, and this makes a lot of sense. The Dark Ranger's Pupil has all the hallmarks of an allied race unlock chain, and having Dark Rangers as a race option on the Horde and Alliance sides would be a lot easier than having to make a whole new class whose toolset has already been bagsied by other classes. But the problem with that idea is, like, what are you going to do? Just make Hunter and Rogue be the only classes that your new allied race can pick from? It would feel a bit weird to see a Dark Ranger priest or a warrior running around, you know? In fairness, I think loads of people would be absolutely okay with a Dark Ranger allied race that was limited to Hunter and Rogue class choices, but that doesn't seem like Blizzard's style to me, which brings us to the third option, a straight up unique customization. What if Dark Ranger customization was basically the Mists of Pandaria Green Fire quest for Warlocks, but for Hunters? Currently, the Dark Ranger's Pupil only appears to be available to Hunters since it starts in the Hunter Order Hall and we are specifically referred to as Huntmaster. What if this is a questline that takes us through Tirisfal and the Scarlet Monastery in an adventure that shows not only Velenara vowing to keep the legacy of the Dark Rangers alive by enlisting more raised Blood Elves to the cause, but also shows us the Forsaken Night Elf Sentinels reach a point where they have come to terms with the fate that has befallen them and are ready to try and rejoin the Alliance again, with Derek Proudmoore being their in. It's a bit complicated. Calia is currently on the Horde Council and is probably being set up for a reunion with her human Lordaeron Forsaken in the long run. And what if, at the end of it all, Blood Elf and Night Elf Hunters have access to the character customization options that would enable them to take on the appearance of their new sub-faction? You could even add differences in the way some abilities look too, just for extra flavor, and gosh, would you look at that, suddenly it's the class skins idea that we talked about back in BFA. Yeah, I think in all honesty, in a game that probably has enough classes and allied races for now, class skins, where existing classes get race-specific reskins, where only the appearance and possibly names of the abilities change, like light-themed Shadow Priest for Lightforged Draenei, or Spellbreakers for Blood Elf Prop Paladins, or water-themed Tide Sage for Kultiran Shaman, or Dark Rangers, like we suggest in that old video, give players that playing as something new hit that I think every new expansion deserves. So, is this it? Are class skins about to be made a reality? Are Dark Rangers just the first in a line of planned class and race-specific customizations that we can expect in 10.0. If that's the case, perhaps this is why it looks like it's coming in 9.2.5 rather than the expansion proper. Our first taster of a new system with more to come, just like they did with allied races. Only time will tell, and honestly, we aren't gonna need to wait too long, because if Dark Rangers are being made a thing, then you would imagine they would be announced in the new expansion reveal on April the 19th. You can bet I've got it on my bingo card, and internet, I'm sure I don't have to tell you that I am very, very excited, and I'm as sure of this as I was for Tinkers. Okay, yeah, let's not talk about Tinkers. Wow, I'm glad this video ended 5 seconds ago, but what do you think? Are Dark Rangers imminent? How would you like to see them implemented in the game? What other class skins would you like to see if it becomes a thing? Or why am I completely wrong about everything as usual? Let us know in the comments below, and thanks for joining us today. If you like this video, don't thank us, thank our patrons who give their actual real-life money to make all of our work possible. And it has to be said, one particular patron, Ibrahim, who has been encouraging me to make this video for like the last 6 months. Well, I'm glad I waited till now. If you didn't like it, downvote the shit out of it. And remember, my name is Dark Ranger Elvira. No, my name is Taliesin, from me and Evitel and Anirin and Penny too. Until next time, cheerio.